downloads were coming in before you and I were connecting, because as we know, I know that our connection has to do with a lot of high vibrational energy. And I even tuned in to ask guidance, like, what is our connection? And our connection and coming together today had to do with creativity. So I started feeling this instant download of this higher divine guidance, and the divine higher diamond light is what it is.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that's definitely a part of it.
Oh, that's amazing.
we're with so much energy going on here, it can't be supported through this system.
Yeah, I feel it. I definitely feel that. I think your book is so, it's just perfect for right now in this time. Because especially the raise part, that was so cool. Like how you can understand so much more of yourself with the way that you described about the rays and all the people I've met. But I've always thought that you've had a twin flame, you only have one twin flame.
Right.
You might have many soulmates that are guiding you and helping you on this journey, but the twin flame sometimes is the hardest, would you say? Or like...
Oh, absolutely. And that's why I'm trying to teach people, though, to change that old programming, because it's our perception.
Right. Because it's not necessarily... Yeah. Because it's not really hard. It's just that it's sometimes the more, it's like the biggest mirror, right? Like
exactly.
You need to clear.
It's hard because we're like, the key is we have to look at ourselves in that mirror.
Yeah. Right.
And like, are we willing to look at ourselves? Are we willing to face that person in the mirror? Are we willing to then act on what it is we need to get out of that lesson?
Yeah.
You know, but I always tell people 75% is the awakening of acknowledging whatever that is.
Right.
And so once we acknowledge what it is, 25% of it then is taking action towards what it takes to make the change, which is easier than coming to the awareness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It takes the longest amount of time to get our awareness.
Yeah.
And then we take responsibility, and from there we can take action, responsibility, and take action.
Mm-hmm. Once we are aware of this like twin flame relationship and experience, it makes it so much more meaningful, like when you find that person and that interaction, because it's it's showing the things that you need to work on, which I think is very powerful. And like at first you might be like, oh, they're just being a jerk, or like this is not fair, this is like whatever, but in the end it's for a purpose, and I think that's the really cool part of it. And
I think that that's where my book really helps understand more of the purpose, because when you can understand the purpose, you can then start to see the beauty in what's happening, and instead of it happening to you, it's happening for you.
Yes. Yeah, because all this, you would say, happened during these times of like Lemuria, Atlantis, right? And so this
absolutely.
Generation, and so this is the end of that cycle, you would say, or?
Yeah, so exactly. I'm glad, that's perfect question. So Atlantis was more of the masculine destruction, okay, and the fall and the destruction. Lemuria was more of the feminine expression and the flood water, okay, and so very high crystalline beings, twins. The beginning, virtually Atlantis was more of what was documented to be more of the beginning of where everyone was twin flames and where everyone was united. And so it was in the fall of Atlantis that created the destruction, that created the original soul pain and the original separation. So all these triggers with all these soulmates and your twin right now are only triggering to purify all the way back to the beginning of time.
Right.
So it's all much deeper than this reality. And that's why it's so painful. Mm-hmm. But then what I got to tell you, which is so awesome, and I was showing this through my dog, actually, how we're connected and this journey I went on with him, that I said, we are bridging the gap between Atlantis and Lemuria now, restoring the balance of the masculine and the feminine, which is creating Avalon, the return and the restoration of Avalon.
Oh, wow.
Now, Avalon is the perfect harmonic balance of masculine and feminine energy. My dog's name, I named him 8 years ago, champ Avalon.
Wow.
And when I actually he was taken, and there was many things I was shown on that journey that showed me this whole Avalon journey. So I have one of my entire books is the restoration of Avalon, and how these bridges merge together collectively of what we're talking about here. But I went to South America to go to the Laguna in Guadavita that was showing me a entire portal of energy that represents the Golden City, which is Avalon, and the story behind it, I won't go into that here, but it's just beautiful. It'll be in a book coming up, but it's just really awesome. But at the end of the day, this unification, this harmonization, restoring the collective sparks that were coming from every ascension ray is also the higher consciousness and all the entities and the universe is coming into this oneness. So it's restoring the diamond light, which is every color ray coming in together. And that is the return and the restoration of Avalon with the perfect balance of masculine and feminine energy.
Wow. Yeah, it's beautiful.
I know.
Yeah, because I definitely know this is what I'm supposed to do, is to bring this information and bring that connection in a way that creatively, like you said, and visually, that people can understand the importance of and how that relationship, like it might in the belief system appear hard or difficult, but that's how we get to where we want to be. And I think from reading your book, it's definitely changing my belief system on the current relationship or relationship I've had. And I know that it has been an experience that before I used to be like, oh, it's just so painful. But now it's like, it's for a reason. There's a purpose to it. And it's only creating this mirror that I think a lot of us were too afraid to look at. And by like meeting people like you and having a book that has this information in a very like compassionate way, because you've lived it, it makes it not as difficult, and it gives a little bit more meaning to each relationship that you've had and the purpose of it. So like I definitely guarantee reading this book, it's mind-blowing and expansive, and it helps you connect to a part of you that will help you get to this connection of your twin flame and understand that even the difficult relationships are like actually as loving and supportive as any other, you know. But it's like you said, it's for a purpose to clear all this so we can find our other half.
And those other relationships, like you talked about, like all the pain that I went through with my karmic soulmate, so painful. I said it created the radiant heart. So going from, you know, a lot of pain helped me expand into more pleasure. But what it did for me mostly was learn how to have full, like really more compassion, which is the highest version of unconditional love you can have.
Yeah.
Like more compassion than I ever would have known otherwise.
Yeah. I especially love the stuff you talk about, like the physical chemistry addiction. Well, as soon as I understood what you were saying, it kind of was like, oh my God, like that's an addiction too. It's not just some,
It is.
like it's definitely something that people are addicted to from almost everything in our in our field of vision every day, you know, and it creates that like need for this kind of chemistry that I feel isn't as natural as, like you said.
And the divine masculine that I see with them going through these karmic partners, the majority is based on chemical attraction and healing addictive personality.
Yeah.
And it's that high and that low from the love-hate relationship and those relationships that creates a real adrenaline, endorphin type surge that's like heroin.
Right. This lustful connection that's really not as loving as it appears, you know. And I think that's a really eye-opening thing. Like the way you talk about it is just from a purifying example of clearing to have a deeper connection, you know.
Exactly. And we come together as twins in this energetic connection. It creates this portal and in the like of energy between you and your etheric body. So we have our energy and our energy field. They have their energy and their energy field. And then when you come together, it creates like this third body. It does that with everyone you come into contact with. But in that can also carry its own like blocks or its own congestion. And that also might need to be cleared between the two of you, this energetic clearing. But when you like are going through this process and you are feeling like the negativity aspects of it, it's the pain is on a real soul level. Like, so I just want to really clarify that, like, the pain is real. I mean, it's no different than cutting your arm off, because all this energy that's connected and you separate, that's where I was going with that, where if you go into separation and you separate that, it's creating the real, like putting you back through and recreating what you went through at the beginning of the separation.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
At the beginning of time. So it's recreating it. That's what I was saying, meaning with that.
Yeah. And you would say, like, so sometimes there are twin flames, though, like you said, that aren't reincarnated at the same time. And sometimes that they're more of a relationship that isn't naturally like a physical or like a relationship, like being like as a couple or something like that.
That's right. So I'm working with twins that have twins on the other side that have not necessarily, maybe they've even been in this life and they've already passed, or they're not in this life. They've already connected up and awakened to knowing this, and they're coming to me, and I'm seeing this multiple times. They could be a brother, sisters. They could be mom, dad. Of course, mom, dad would be more romantic, but like parent, sibling is what it was meaning, and friends. And it depends really on like what. There's so many commonalities to this, but there is a lot of individualities to it as well. And so it depends so many things as to what you signed up for in your journey, as to what is your specific mission, so to speak. But at the end of the day, it's all about personal transformation. So after all this personal mastery is done, that's when you come into the alignment, and your twin flame can become more like the soulmate, and you harmonize as the one.
Wow. Okay.
And that is the ultimate relationship.
Right.
However, just know what I tell people is that, like, don't close the door, but don't wait, because otherwise you might be missing out something that's you need to plug a leak to keep your personal path going forward. And that's where some of these facilitators are coming in to help expansion work, or karmic partners are coming in to help clear the lower karma. Right. Because you can't do that for each other. And it's not even about could you do it for each other. It's about there's karmic contracts that's been made between you or them and other people that have to be fulfilled before they're free to come together.
Right. So like individually as a twin flame, you might have to do some work before you can find where you need to come together. Like you both need to individually do your work. And then when you're ready, it's like, then that's when it happens. But
yeah, and then the thing where people talk about the runner phase of that, where like coming together and going apart, it's that energy that's pulling together to create a vacuum to purge out this karma for the purification. But then it's the separation has to take place in order to purify and to release and to process and integrate that information. And once you've completed enough of that purge, then you might come back in together. You will keep coming back in together and apart until I call it the push-pull karmic purge that's happening, not runner chaser.
Mm-hmm.
But same concept.
Right. Yeah, and you said that at times there's one half, or the one part of you might have a little bit more wisdom than the other half, or, there's like the balance is off a little bit for a purpose, though?
Yeah, and part of that is because, first of all, the greater the light, the darker the shadow. Yeah. So it doesn't make their work any less. They're not doing the work. They're not doing the work, right? Right. It doesn't make them not doing the work any less. It takes the contrast and the duality to create the whole. Right. But that's where, so basically, a lot of times one will carry the dark, and so the other one finds the light.
Mm-hmm.
When that happens, then the one carrying the light tends to kind of harmonizes back down a little bit, opening up some of that light to help they actually then start coming up in light and they're awakening. And it's about then meeting at this harmonizing place.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not necessarily two spiritual gurus that are going to come together and live happily ever after like people think.
Right.
It might be that one is the spiritual and one's never going to have that. And until you can let go that they're supposed to get it, guess what? You're holding up the process.